If you recall, in my last video, I finished securing the batteries to the floor of the van using custom-made brackets.
Okay, so the next step is to put these in place. Red to red and black to black. And that looks like exactly how they go. So let's get busy with that. Anybody who knows me, anybody who really knows me, I should say, knows that electrical is not my favorite game. So this whole part of the van build, I feel is like one of the hardest parts because I feel unsure. I've watched 1,000 videos, I've read thousands of articles. I think I have the right fuses. Speaking of fuses, this is one that needs to go on now. This is an MRBF fuse, and mine is, I think it's 300, so I can have a 300 amp current coming through that. It's a 300, and that is going on the outbound terminal of the last battery that is connected here. So I'm going to throw that on as well. And then that'll get hooked to the bus bar, and that protects the system from blowing your batteries, I guess. And I see it's called an MRBF terminal fuse block, 30 amp to 300 amp DC. I'm just cutting these open so that they span the cables. And, you know, if you drop any tools or something, you can, if they both hit both cables, you can get some current flowing, and I don't want any of that happening. Any shocks. And since I don't really know what I'm doing, I'm going to be as careful as I can be. All right, we'll put that one on there. This, I think, we got to tighten down. Okay, probably don't want to strip those. Then I'm going to throw this cover on. Okay, let's take a look. By the way, the cables that I use, the size cable that I use down there is 2/0. This is 1 and this is 2. You can see the difference between the two. And then I got 5/16 lugs that I used as well. All right, so that's a small bit of progress. It helped that I made these cables last fall, but we're connecting red to red, black to black. And then, as I said, we've got our MRBF fuse on there. All right, the next thing that I'm going to do is make a cable for this to connect to this. And this is a shunt. And you can see one side says battery only. This is my Victron Energy battery monitor system. So I need to make a cable that goes from the battery, this connection to the battery, so that I can put this shunt in line. That's one of the next things. I also need to make the cables that go from here to this switch. So I have a couple cables that I need to make, and I'm going to get started on that now. The first thing that I'm going to do for the shunt cable is, I think I'm going to keep this pretty close to the battery bank, maybe having it sit somewhere in here. So I need to measure the length of cable that I need to go from here to, you know, sit right in here somewhere. Now we're going to cut the plastic off the wire. And if we look up close, there's a razor blade in there. Let me see if I can get the angle right. There it is. There we go. Yeah, that's nice. So now we're going to get out our crimper and we're going to put the lugs on. This is the hydraulic crimping tool that I bought on Amazon. I think it was about $50. Comes with a whole number of different die sets that you can use. And let me show you how it works. Okay, this pin just slides back and you pull out the molding dies and you find the size that you need for the wire that you're crimping. And I'm using 5/16 and I think, if I remember right, 50 was the size we used. So we slide those in, those molding dies in there, and just push the pin back in place. Then you set your device to on. All right, and now let's crimp. So you want to, I like to punch this down till it's a little bit closer. You can see how these two pieces of these two molding dies are moving close together. And then we take our lug and we make sure that's on our wire and we insert that in there. Oh, I've already gone too far. So I'm going to open this up and that'll release it. All right, let's turn it back on. And you have to actually hold the lug onto the wire at the same time that you're getting it in there. And you slowly then crimp it down. And what you want to do is just keep pressing the lever until the two dies meet. You don't want to go beyond that because then you're just, you're doing unnecessary pressure. So let's see, we're almost there. Just keep going. Going. Okay, that is it. Those lugs are together. So we release this, and then you have your crimp. And then next, you can either use heat shrink to seal this, or I prefer electrical tape because I can put it on where I like it. Just wrap that connection, get it really good. And then the other thing you want to do is get right down to the base of your lug. And don't cover the hole, but get right down there. There we go. And that should be enough. Let me cut that off. Okay, and now your cable is all set and you're ready to use it. All right, there we go. We have our cable made for our shunt. So we have one end. What's going to go on this one? Please tell me that was 5/16. Oh, it's not. I might have to drill that out a bit. Okay, so I drilled this out much better. Apparently the shunt is 5/8, or 3/8, excuse me. The shunt is a 3/8 connection. And we got to put this end on the battery, the negative. Okay, we got one side of the shunt on. Here's an example of when I'm going to be positioning my lugs differently. On this case, I am going to be connecting to the input side of this, and then the other end is going to go on top of this. So I've got one vertical and one horizontal. These uber little ones were really tricky to make, but I want to put my bus bar here. So I need this to be really short in here, and I hope this is going to work. If that's on, see, I drilled out that end. Boy, that's going to still be pretty tight. Well, we got a few things done today. We installed the battery brackets down here. They also run along the sides, which is hard to see, but those are screwed to the ground. Then we've got our strap that holds the batteries in. We've connected all of our batteries. We installed the 300 amp fuse. We've got our on-off switch, which is currently set to off. We created all these cables to connect everything. We've got our positive and our negative bus bar installed. This is the shunt for the battery monitor. So this is the actual battery monitor that will get put up on this wall over here. That's going to be my control panel. And we got our inverter hooked up to our bus bar, and that's about as far as we got. This is the on-off switch for the inverter, which also will get run and mounted up over here, so we can turn that on and off manually without having to reach behind the inverter itself. Good progress for the day.